Palestinians are continuing to ask world leaders to help to stop the Israeli assault, while Israel is calling up thousands of additional troops and more heavy weapons towards Gaza. It's certainly stoking fears of a ground invasion. Let's talk to a spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister's office, Mr. Alex Selsky, now joining us live from Tel Aviv to come on the programme here with us. Mr. Selsky, a pleasure to see you. Thanks for coming on RT today. Overnight, 120 sites targeted by the IDF, while Hamas militants reportedly fired 11 rockets. Is this a proportionate use of force, do you think?
I want to say that we have only one goal. Israel has to defend its citizens. I'm sure that there is no state, Russia and no state in Europe and no, the United States of America can agree with this kind of situation. You know, our children, our elders are fired by rockets on our schools, on our civilians, and we target only terrorists with one very simple goal: to stop this firing of rockets on our civilians, and we will target terrorists until they stop.
Well, indeed, Mr. Selsky, we do understand that you are indeed targeting militants. We've been keeping very close tabs on your targets in Gaza. But if I may ask you, as the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, are going after militants, would you care to explain why the Palestinian Interior Ministry has also been targeted? In fact, that building is basically left in a state of rubble and ruin. It's hardly a militant stronghold. In fact, the Interior Ministry is where people get passports, visas. It's where journalists get their permission to go into the Strip. Why level the Interior Ministry?
The explanation is very simple. Unfortunately, Hamas terrorists, while they target our civilians, they hide behind their civilians. They hide behind schools. They fire next to schools. They fire next to houses. Now, the IDF, our army that wants only to defend our citizens, targets only terrorists, and we call upon every civilian in Gaza not to be around the terrorists, and then you will not be hurt. And then we call upon the terrorists not to use civilians and not to target our civilians.
Well, I understand you're saying that terrorists are using civilians here. Gaza is an extremely confined area, a very small area, probably certainly overpopulated. Why are so many children being killed by Israeli airstrikes if you're going after militants?
There are no children, there are no many children, there are no children being hurt by IDF. Only terrorists are hurt and only terrorists are targeted. And again, the Hamas terrorists hide upon civilians and hide upon around schools and behind children. And again, we call them not to do so, and we call to civilians not to be around terrorists, and then nobody will be hurt.
Well, I'm having a very difficult time understanding what you're saying here. You're saying that no children have been hurt so far. We've got reports of at least 3 children are dead. In fact, the Egyptian Prime Minister, who moments ago left the Gaza Strip, he went there to show solidarity with the Palestinians. He went to one of the local hospitals and witnessed a 2-year-old child dead being brought into the hospital. We do know that there are roaming blackouts that are routinely implemented on Gaza. Are you allowing electricity to get through to the Gaza Strip so hospitals can function and deal with the children and the civilians who are dying or being injured?
I suggest you check the information. While the visit of the Prime Minister of Egypt, Israel didn't fire and didn't attack any target in Gaza. But Hamas terrorists did target Israeli civilians while the visit of the Prime Minister of Egypt. And I suggest you check the information, because there cannot be people hurt while the visit of the Prime Minister of Egypt, because we didn't.
All right. Well, I'll certainly go back and check my information. You're absolutely right. According to the IDF, no airstrikes were carried out on the Gaza Strip during the visit of the Egyptian Prime Minister, although somehow 2 Palestinians did manage to die. Let's talk about how Israeli troops, tanks and armored carriers are right now massing near the Palestinian border. Is a ground invasion the next step?
The Israeli army and the Israeli government will do everything needed targeting terrorists, only terrorists, to stop the firing of rockets on Israeli cities, on Israeli schools, on Israeli children. And if we will need some ground operation, we definitely will consider so. At the moment, there is very, very simple situation. If the terrorists will stop firing rockets, Israel will stop the attacks on terrorists. We want our children sleep safely and go to schools safely. We want our elders to sleep safely and live safely. That's
well, we understand. Look, I think everybody around the world wants to live in a state of peace, and I commend you. I commend you for saying that. But if I may continue here, we are witnessing a swelling of army troops around the Palestinian Gaza border. There also armored carriers and tanks. The British Foreign Secretary William Hague, in just the past 90 minutes, has warned against the use of ground forces in Gaza. 4 years ago, a ground invasion did take place, which lost Israel the support of the international community. Are you really, in the eyes of the world, going to now launch a ground invasion into the Gaza Strip, where the Palestinians, as most people know, don't even have an army?
You're definitely right. We don't want any ground operation. We just want peace and safety. But if the rockets will continue falling, and if terrorists will continue to target our children, we will consider everything needed to target the terrorists, to defend our citizens, as every state would do in the world, as every father and every mother in the world would do.
All right. Well, I suppose, as you say, you're prepared to do just about anything. We should perhaps be aware that, of course, it was the UN that came out with a Goldstone report approximately 4 years ago, accusing Israel of war crimes during the invasion roughly 4 years ago. If I may, just for a moment, Hamas is vowing to keep fighting as long as the attacks continue. Let's have a quick listen here to the Prime Minister speaking just a little bit earlier. Please stand by.
We will never forget the blood of our martyrs and the blood of our leaders. This holy blood will not go without a response. The great Palestinian nation, which has sacrificed martyrs for generations, will never forget. The Hamas movement, which now millions support, will never forget the blood of its martyrs.
Do you worry that Israel's actions are actually making your country any safer by ultimately provoking Hamas? Aren't you even putting your own people in more danger? You keep talking about protecting your children, but it's a two-way street. Both sides are to blame here. How do you resolve this?
How can you speak about a provocation? It is more than 10 years that Hamas fire rockets on our cities, on our schools, on our citizens. And we all the time only react to defend. We don't provoke and we don't attack. Believe me, you can see that they target only civilians and we target only terrorists. And I'm sure that every father and every mother understands that Israel wants only to defend its citizens. There is no provocation from Israeli side, only one simple goal: to be safe, to have safe and peaceful life. We want our children to go safely and peacefully to schools and live safely. That's all.
All right. A spokesman for the Israeli Prime Minister, Alex Salsky, thank you very much indeed for coming on RT today.